ठीक आहे, थँक्यू. आप भेट सकते हैं वहाँ, आप तुम्ही पण तिकडे बसू शकता. मला काही बघीन आणि काय फार जर लागलं तर मी बोलवतो. अब ऑन हो गया है, कनेक्ट हो गया है. अच्छा, सो मैं वेलकम वगैरह कर सकता हूँ. निकाल लूँ ना. बहुत लाइट है. Hello and welcome to this this session. So I'm very happy to be here and I will try to answer the questions that you have raised as best as I can. So let me first start with the questions that are on my screen live. Okay, how many sessions on C++ will we be having? That's the first question as far as I can tell. So this is session 1. Okay, I think if there is a real need, I think I can have one more session. I think usually I have not had more than one session in my previous offerings of the course. But if you really want an additional session, I can do that. Okay. Wait for a few minutes, session on time. Okay. Okay, so I think okay, Shashank is on the call. Very good. Okay. So okay. Okay, so I'm not figuring the questions out here. I have a query, yes. Which week are you guys in? Okay. Using namespace study. Hello everyone. Okay, good evening to all of you. Okay, so I think there is a question over here from Chayan Devbera. Sir, 8.1 and 8.2 assignments are not clearly described. Hi, Mr. Bera, I think you have to say a little bit more than that. Okay, so you have to say what is not clear. Only then we can try and answer, because it's not clear what exactly do you want us to say. Okay. Why do we use classes? Okay, that's a question by Zaid. So, so we have said why we use structures, right? So when we said, so why did we use structures? Well, we use structures because we want to put together lots of variables and create a super variable. It's just like if I have a lot of papers on my desk, that looks very untidy. I don't easily know where a different paper is, where a particular paper is. So it's much better to put the papers into a folder. And so then if you have many folders, maybe you can even put some folders into each other. Okay, so some kind of a hierarchical organization is always easy, is always better than just lot of papers on your desk. So similarly over here, you want to create super variables, and structures are just super variables. And classes are also the same thing, but classes are more sophisticated. They are more sophisticated in the sense that you don't directly know what is inside a class usually. Okay, so there is a lot of control that the designer can exercise. So for example, the designer may not show you what variables are stored because those variables may be private. The data may not be shown to you. The data may not be visible to you. So instead the designer may say that, look, you have to only use these functions. These particular functions have to be used. You don't know how I'm going to implement those functions. You don't even know what data I'm going to store, but I'm going to make you some promise about what the results of that function call will be. This is actually good for you because you don't really, when you are a programmer who is using a particular function, you don't really care exactly how the function works. What you care about is what the function does. So the function may be using a very complicated algorithm, but you want to know what is the result. So result produced. Is the function multiplying two matrices? Is the function sorting? That's what you want to know. You don't really care how the function does the sorting. Okay, you don't really care how the matrices are multiplied. So in classes, the details such as exactly what is stored is hidden, and of course even what how exactly the implementation is also hidden. Okay, so that is the reason why we have classes. Is that if that is clear, then I think if it is not clear, you can ask a question again later on, and we will look at that. Okay, so then there is a question. Hello, sir. According to you, what is the most important thing to become a master in programming? Okay, so I will give you an answer which works for almost anything. What is the most important thing to become a master in sports? You have to play a lot of games. Okay, you have to play a lot. You have to keep on practicing a lot. And just as in sports, you may play on different fields. Okay, you may play against different teams. Similarly, when you are writing programs, you should try and write different kinds of programs. So practice, practice, practice. That is sort of the simplest answer. Okay. There are more complicated answers, of course, and maybe I'll tell a little about it. So when you practice, things are not over. After practicing, you have to think about what happened. Okay. So if you are playing football, you might think about, look, why did I miss that pass? Okay. So in programming also, you might think about, look, there were 5 different ways in which I could have done this thing. Okay, which one should I use? And then based on your experience, you may discover that, oh, at that time I used this way of doing things. No, that is not so good. Okay, so it is practice, and it's also what is called mindful practice. So if you do mindful practice, then that is probably the most important thing to become a master in programming, and as I said, in everything. Okay, please. Okay, so I think Shashank has already answered it. Thanks, Shashank. Okay, so what is space complexity? All right, so this is not a term that we have defined. Okay, but so the term is the term simply means how much space do we need. So if you are using an array, what is the size of the array? If you are using several arrays, what is the total memory requirement? That is what is space complexity. So your computer may have, say, 1 gigabyte of RAM or something like that, whatever it is, say, give or take a few factors. So you want to be sure that your program doesn't demand more memory than that. And so therefore space complexity is important. Okay, 8.1, okay. The input and output is not clear to me. Okay, so again, so I think maybe I really should open 8.1 to answer to you, and let me do that, and then that way I will be able to tell you. Okay, so while I do that, let me try to answer the other questions first. As I look into this. Okay, so yeah, the error in the compiler outputs. Don't. Okay, good. I'm in second semester. How much time do I need to give to programming? So we have been giving you exercises, right? So if you can do those exercises, that would sort of be a basic level, okay? And then there are many books on programming, so you can try to do exercises in that. It really depends upon how good you want to become, okay? So, but if you want to pass this course, then if you do all the exercises that we give you and then think about things, where did you go wrong, I think that should be enough, okay? Okay, yeah, so I was going to look at 8.1 and 8.2. Just 1 second. Okay, just 1 second. Okay, so let me go back to that question about 8.1. Okay, so okay, so Chayan Dev. Okay, so in 8.1, okay, so you are expected to make a table, okay, and you are supposed to answer queries from that table. That's all there is to it, okay. So yeah, so okay, so there is an integer n, an integer a, and a sequence of n words, names of countries, and then a sequence of a words, which is each of which is an attribute of a country. Okay, I think Chayan Dev, I think I understand what your difficulty is. I think the difficulty simply is that the examples that have been given are not consistent with the data given at the top. Okay, so here is what we will do. I will write down a description which looks like the description given at the top. the data so that the data also and explain the test cases. Okay, so in brief, the idea is that if you give the input is something which allows you to build a table. Okay, so the table contains names of countries, for example, and their different attributes, maybe population, maybe GDP, and then later on you are going to type in maybe India and GDP, and you should get the GDP of India. That is what is expected. Okay, so I think we will try to do it. We will try to do it so that the sample test cases are better understood and explained. Okay. All right. So let me move on. But Shashank and Swayam, could you please note this down? Okay. And similarly, I think there might be something that we need to explain about 8.2. Please put it on the forum, and we will explain that as well. Okay. So what is okay? So there is a question: are programming and competitive programming different? Competitive programming is a competition. Okay, so some kinds of problems are given, and there is a time limit, and often the problems given to you are related to some interesting algorithm that you need to figure out, and maybe even some interesting data structure. Programming in real life isn't always like competitive programming, because you may or may not need very clever data structures. Instead, what might be needed is to produce a program which is easier to read for other people. Okay, so about which you are very sure, and the time you may not need to write the program in such fantastic hurry as is needed in competitive programming. Okay, what will be the pattern of the course exam? It will be exactly like the quizzes that we have been giving you. It will be multiple choice. It could be fill in the blanks. That's about it. Okay, Pratik Gaur, some questions in some assignments have been evaluated incorrectly. We are just getting ignored. Please direct the course TAs to correct or remove such questions. Okay, so we have done this. I think there were a couple, and you will hear about them pretty soon. But if it doesn't happen to your satisfaction, please write again. Okay, so I'm sorry it has not already happened, but it will happen. Okay. Richang says, do we need to do an advanced course also after this course for solving advanced problems, or only this course will work? So, so this course will go quite some distance. Okay, but there are of course many kinds of advanced courses. So so sort of the simplest advanced courses are courses on data structures. So especially if you want to write programs which are fast, then getting a good data structure is important and useful than just getting a data structure which will work. Okay, so in this course we are telling you about some data structures, but there may be more complicated data structures which might be needed for making some advanced problems go very fast. Similarly, there are many algorithms for solving different problems which we have not talked to you about at all. So those courses will also help you. And then of course, depending upon the kind of programming you want to do. Suppose you want to write programs, if you are in engineering and if you want to do some analysis of some structure, then you may need to write a certain kind of programs, of course, which we have not done at all in this course. What would be the duration of the offline NPTEL exam? I believe it is 3 hours, but please check. Okay, I'm pretty sure it is 3 hours. There is no negative marking. What should we do to minimize space complexity? Okay, so one idea simply is that do not, do, I mean, just carefully look at what do I really need after I read the input, can I process it immediately so that I don't need to use memory to keep that input, and I can reuse that memory. Okay, so sometimes we can do the following. So suppose I want to, very simple, suppose I have to add 100 numbers. Then I don't really need to first read the 100 numbers. I can keep on doing the addition, and therefore at each point in time I only need space to store just one number. Okay. So similar ideas are there. There could be more clever ideas also, and these more clever ideas will come out in the advanced courses that you might do. I found week 11 and week 12 video lectures and programs are too long and complicated. Is there any way I can master these? Okay, so mastering anything that is long and complicated works by breaking it down into pieces. So we have tried to break those programs into pieces, and what you should ask yourself is, do I understand each piece or not? And write on the forum whether you cannot understand a certain piece, or you cannot understand the way some of the pieces have been put together. Okay, so that's the only way to understand something which is large and complicated. It could be the construction of a large building. It could be writing of some large document. Okay, so you have to break things into smaller pieces and understand it one piece at a time. And you also have to understand the relationship between the pieces. But that exactly is the point of week 11 and week 12. Because in real life, you will need to work with larger programs. And week 11 and week 12 show you how to do that. They are effectively saying you break up what you need to do into small pieces and work on each piece. Solve each piece and then put those pieces together. Okay? It's not, I don't mean to say it is easy, but it is a skill, and that's exactly the point of 11 and 12. And please don't give up on it. As I said, do take the time to understand it, and then raise questions in the forum if you have some difficulty. Sir, is file handling important in C language? So file handling is of course important in any language. In C++, we have the way files are handled in C and C++ are slightly different, and we have discussed the way to handle files in the C++ language, and you can see that it's reasonably simple unless you are going to do something complicated, very complicated. So for most common things that you do, file handling in C is very simple. Okay, what should we do to minimize space complexity? Okay, I think I answered this to the extent it is possible. Okay, Prashant Singh says, I have paid my fee for exam, but it is still showing register for exam. Prashant, I really cannot help you. You have to talk to NPTEL. I think please talk to NPTEL administration and they will have to help you. Okay, you can raise it on the forum and we will try to get you to go to the appropriate NPTEL office if you are not able to do that. Okay, Sandeep Chatterjee says, sir, this course is very useful, sir. My question is C++ a good choice to start for beginners to get into problem solving, or shall we start with other languages? Okay, so C++ is a language which you can think of as a low-level language as well as a high-level language. When I say a low-level language, it means that it is a language which is somewhat close to a computer, and it is a language where often it is relatively simple to understand what is going on. So for example, if you create a variable in C++, it always means that a piece of memory is given to you. Okay, so that's what a variable always means. A variable is associated with a certain, a variable is really just a name given to a piece, given to a certain region of the memory. Okay. Similarly, if you are going to do a loop, what that loop means is very easy to understand. Okay. So the basic programming ideas are really very similar in most languages. So to that extent, C++ is a good choice. There are there are other languages. So I would say that C++ is a better choice than something like C, because C++ contains higher level functionality as well. So say for example, in the next week, so you will be learning about the standard library, which gives you something which is a lot more powerful than what is given to you by C. So, but it's not really hard. So again, you are building up as you build things up. The second point is that because C++ is close to the hardware, you get a much better feel for what is going on in the hardware, and so it's not too abstract. It's somewhat concrete. On the other hand, if you feel that you don't really care that much to understand what is going on in a computer or how exactly things are represented, okay, so then there can be other languages which might be perhaps better for you, say something like Python. But usually, so at least for beginners, the question really is not what language should you be using. The question is what problems do you want to solve? Do you want to do you want to write a game, for example? Do you want to do mathematical programming? So these are the questions that you should ask. And once you ask these questions, the choice of the language doesn't really matter all that much, at least in the beginning. Okay. So yeah. So I should also make one more point. So C++ is an old language, or it's evolved from an old language, which is C. So the C language started when people didn't know all that much about programming, and so some wrong decisions were made when designing that language. So some of those decisions have been inherited into C++ also. So in the course, we have tried to tell you which features of C++ are good and which features of C++ are bad. So when you write a program, you should not use the bad features of C++. Okay. So when I say bad features of C++, I think even the operator ++ is a little bit of a tricky operator. You should use operators and features which are reasonably simple. And that is a realization that people have come to after some 30-40 years. But at this point, if you stick to a same subset of C++, which is by and large what we are doing in the course, that should be fine. Okay. So at the same time, I will say that if you use a language like Python, then there are some very nice syntactic features in it. So for example, in Python, there is something called list comprehension, which is a very, very compact way to specify some kinds of algorithms. Okay. So Python is certainly a language that I will suggest that you should also study. But by and large, for some time, if you want to really write fast programs, if you want to understand what is going on at the level of the hardware, if you are curious about hardware, then I think C++ is a really good choice. And furthermore, again, it depends on what kinds of programs you want to write. So for the kinds of programs that you want to write as a beginner, C++ is a pretty good choice. Macros were asked in my interview. That's what Vijay Kumar Mathayan says. Okay, so macros are a somewhat complicated feature. A macro is something which looks like a function, but it is not a function. A macro is something which causes a change to the text of your program. So if you have a macro, so say for example, the main program, main underscore program that you used in the first few lectures was actually a macro, and that got replaced by main, by int main and open parenthesis, close parenthesis. Okay, so but there are more even the repeat that you have been using is actually a macro. Okay, so macros have been there in the language because sometimes you want to have simple ways of writing down complicated concepts and complicated text. You want to hide the sort of details which you don't want to talk about at a certain point in time. But and macros can have parameters just like functions do, but those parameters are used for generating the text that is supposed to replace the body of the macro. And after that, your program gets compiled. Okay, when will full version be available for Windows? Hemant Kant, I'm sorry, we don't have plans for doing that for now, but maybe after an year we will have it available. Okay, so we are trying to change the complete implementation of simple CPP and maybe add some features, and after that perhaps it will be available. The full version will be available. Okay, sorry. So okay, so assignment 8.1 was quite easy. I submitted today. Good, I'm glad. Okay. What is the exam pattern of NPTEL offline exam? It's exactly going to be like the quizzes. Multiple choice and fill in the blanks. I'm in class 11. Can I give exam? I have registered for exam. I believe you can. There is no issue in giving an exam. I don't think there is an age limit or anything like that. Okay. Prashant Singh, I'm sorry, you will have to take this up with the NPTEL office. I think it should be proper, sir. It turns on slow mode. Am I speaking too fast? Is that what you mean? Let me try to slow down. Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. Sir, your book is great. Thank you. Its name should be Programming and Mathematics in C++ because it includes a lot of math problems. Okay, I will keep that in mind. Thank you very much. Oh, in Linux Mint, simple CPP is not working. Okay, I don't know how to answer that. I will have to look into it. I think perhaps Swayam and could you put it on the forum, and I think one of my TAs will look into it. Okay. I have missed week 7 assignment. I want to know if this will affect my certificate. Okay. You have missed week 7. We are going to take the best 8 out of the 11 assignments that we are going to have. Okay. So, well, we are going to have 12 assignments, but one of them was only for practice because we decided not to actually grade it. So we are going to take the best 8 anyway. So if you miss one, it's okay. That's the whole point. That if you miss one, there should be no problem. Okay. Okay. Using namespace std, is it necessary? So I think a number of my TAs have said that it's not a good idea to use namespace std. Let me just explain that a little bit. Okay, so if you are writing rather complex programs, then there is always a problem that a variable that you define in one that you define and a variable that somebody else defines might happen to be the same. Okay, and if you use a namespace, then variables get picked up from that namespace. So, however, let me just tell you that for this course, it is okay to use namespace std. Okay, so don't worry too much about it. Okay. So, okay, where was that? Okay, so it went off very fast. Okay. Okay. Sir, please tell which courses should be registered after completing this course in NPTEL. So the natural progression is the data structures course and also the algorithms course. So both of them are there, I think. Okay, so Shashank Balaji is taking a look at it. Very good. Book recommendations for advanced programming in C++. Uh, okay, I will try to put that down. I can't tell you. I can't. Yeah, yeah. Somebody has put down a couple of books. Please go and look at those. I think that should be fine. Sir, I am unable to build recursion logic on my own. Can you share some tricks to tackle the question? Okay, all right. So recursion is a somewhat tricky problem. Okay, so if you see, we have not asked you to design recursive algorithms. Okay, what we have done is that I have given you a recursive algorithm. Okay, so the recursive algorithm was, so we gave you a recursive program to print out all subsets of a set. Okay, and so you should be able to understand the recursion logic. Okay, so understanding the recursion logic is very different from coming up with the logic. Okay, so coming up with the logic takes some amount of time to become familiar, and we don't have that kind of time in this course because there are so many other things to do. Similarly, we discussed binary search and we discussed merge sort. Okay, so if you can understand those recursive algorithms, then that is enough for this course. All right, please don't get frustrated about recursion. It is a hard topic. Okay, and I don't want to tell you something half because that is going to frustrate you even more. Okay, but let me just say that you should consider, or you should make sure that you answered the question that we gave, which was about deciding whether the sum of the numbers in a certain array add up to a certain target value. So you are supposed to take the program to print out all subsets and modify it to check whether any of the subsets were in fact adding up to that value. Okay, so if you can do that, I think that is what is expected in this course. Coming up with good recursive algorithms is not really expected in this course. Okay, so let me leave it at that. I didn't understand quiz question 9 of week 8. Okay, and I think Bharadwaj, I think you have to state what it is that you didn't understand. I didn't understand isn't a good enough question. Okay, isn't a good enough plea for help. So please do that. You can put the description on the forum as well. So on this question, this term I did not understand, something like that. Okay, what you understood and what you didn't understand. Sometimes I get stuck in something, but there is no one to clear. Okay, that's why the forum is there. So it will not get you an answer very quickly, but I have seen that people on the forum help each other, and of course TAs are also helping each other. So you will have to put your queries on the forum. Okay, please suggest books. Okay, so I think there are some suggestions. Let's CPP by Ashwin Kanetkar, C Basic Programming, C++. Okay, so there are several books. Okay. Okay, good. Okay. please discuss int sum equal to 0 while c in v sum. Okay, so I take it that you are not clear about while c in v. Okay, so when you read, so you know what c in v does, right? So c in v is going to read some element, read some value from the keyboard and put it into v. Okay, but the way this works, that this c in v itself has a value. Okay, it's an expression. So greater than is an operator, and c in greater than v is an expression, just like 5 plus 2 is. So just as the expression 5 plus 2 has a value, okay, c in greater than v also has a value. So this value has nothing to do with the action that happened. The action that we talked about does happen. But it has something to do, but it is not directly related. So the action of reading from the keyboard into v does happen, and c in becomes so the object c in, the value of this expression is simply the value of that object c in. You know by now that c in is the name of an object. And furthermore, if there was any error, then that object becomes a null object. So the value of this entire expression, c in greater than v, becomes null. Or null is the same as 0 in C++ or false in C++, and at that point the loop terminates. So what this does is that you can keep on reading numbers, and when the numbers are ended, okay, when the user types a control D, then that entire stream ends, and c in greater than v fails because there is nothing read. So at that point the while loop exits. Okay, so you have been adding the numbers that you read into this variable sum, and at the end you are going to print out that sum. So this is a way to find the sum of a bunch of numbers without initially saying how many numbers there are at the beginning. Okay. So Asmitraj, if it is not clear to you, please put this again on the forum and take it up one-on-one with the TAs. Okay. So TAs, this might be a tricky thing for some people, and therefore you should take it up. Okay. If somebody puts it on the forum. After we finish C++, will it be easier to learn Python, Java? Absolutely. If you know one language, then it's always easy to learn another language. So sometimes that is because languages are very similar, but sometimes that's because you know what you want to say in a language, or you know that language has a certain structure. So that gives you the maturity already to understand other languages. Okay, good. Those who are live session IITB is being very, very helpful immediately. So drop a mail to support@npteliitm.ac.in. Okay. Okay. Let's see. It's really good. How to get programming, solving examples, competitive programming. Okay, due to college exam, I am not able to learn course in which I register. I am sorry, Saurabh, but I don't think I can really help you about this. Okay, but you know that the lectures will be there, and you can do them at your own leisure. So you can keep on learning, but you may not be able to give the examinations. Okay, how to use graphics objects in some other compilers such as VS Code other than code blocks. So graphics is not portable. Okay, so this is a library that we developed. Okay, some students of mine and I developed this library, and we developed it because it is a lot of fun. Not just fun, but it also allows us to illustrate lots of programming concepts. But unfortunately, the library needs to be compiled, and some of the and the library uses some underlying libraries which need to be linked to your code. And so if other especially with other compilers there may not be an issue, but there may be some issue with different operating systems. So yeah, so that is a little bit of a problem. I can't help on that. Okay, so yeah, so Nitish has given a good idea. So solve queries and solve program in multiple ways. Okay, so you think about, is this the only way of solving this problem? And that is also a good way of becoming a better programmer. Okay, Kaushal, I cannot really help you how to help you in changing your branch. Okay, so that is between you and your university. I'm very sorry. Okay, Master Computer Science. All right. Do you have any advice for engineering students? So engineering requires a lot of computation, and I think modern engineering will require efficient computation also. So of course it will require some good amount of numerical analysis. So that is something that you should take. You should also learn a lot of math. Okay, so you will. And as you learn the math, the programming that we are doing will help you, because you may be able to test out whatever you are learning in your math courses on a program. And okay, so I said that you can use Python, but there is also another language called MATLAB. So MATLAB contains mathematical objects already. So does Python, but MATLAB is perhaps even better. So that way you will be able to test out the mathematics ideas. But note that the programming ideas in MATLAB are again very similar to the programming ideas in C++. There might be some differences, of course, but the general structure, say loops and function calls and all of that, is very, very similar. Or even some of the basic data structures are quite similar. So programming will help you a lot, and do use programming. Okay, so if you find that something is difficult to understand, try to program it. Likewise, if you feel that something is very easy to understand, also you should try to program it. Because when you try to program it, you will see that, oh, it isn't really as easy as I thought it was. Because programming forces you to get to every little detail. And that is the only way to master something, by getting to every little detail. And programming forces you to do that. Okay, do you have engineering students? No, so you don't have to code. As I said, the examinations will be, the offline exams will be exactly like the quizzes. So we may give you a piece of code and we may say what happens to it, or we may ask you to fill in the blanks and so on, but you won't have to write code. Okay, let's see. Is the course the same as the content taught in the IITs? Yes, Aditya, the course is exactly the same. In fact, in the COVID years, this same course was run as the normal course in IIT Bombay. Okay, and in fact, some of your TAs, in fact, both your TAs have taken this course when it was run in IIT Bombay. Should I start with C or C++? Okay, I think this is a bit late for you to ask this question, right? So I presume that you are not quite doing this course. So I would say start with C++. C++ actually does some things much simpler than in a much simpler manner than C. And you can get into a little bit of bad habits if you go with C. So I would say start with C++. Can we look at topics like, oh my God, I lost where, okay. Oh yeah, polymorphism and function overloading. Yes, we are going to get into function overloading. Okay, so it will happen in the let's see, in this week or in the next week. Okay, so there was, I think, in the question sent to me earlier, there was a question about when will we start learning object-oriented programming. So we are going to do things like these some amount of polymorphism. Okay, so polymorphism is a really big term. Don't worry about the term. So basically, it says that, well, what does it say? So it says that you can have a function which can mean different things for different kinds of objects. Okay, so you can define functions. So some of that we are going to learn. Okay. So not all. So there are courses in object-oriented programming also which you can do. But the most important thing that you should worry about in this course is think about problems that you want to solve and ask yourself, can I solve this problem or not? Okay, don't worry about whether you use some big concepts or small concepts. Okay, that is not so important. It is much better, much more important for you to understand the process of programming. Okay, so let's see, right? Okay, only MCQs and fill in the blanks will be there, exactly like the quiz. After completing this course successfully, can I call myself an IITian? Why not? I mean, you are giving a similar exam. So this is one of the courses that is being done in IIT. Of course, we may be asking harder problems because and we, yeah. But anyway, I mean, yes. So I think you can at least call yourself a part IITian if you want. Okay, the hard copy of my book is currently out of print. I'm sorry, I cannot I cannot answer you how to get a hard copy. Okay, but I should point out that NPTEL itself offers a book which is a compilation of the transcripts of all the languages. So please look into that. It's not as nice as the book, because there still are some typos and things like that, and it is sort of a little bit hasty, but at least that you can use. Okay, why not using namespace std? Go ahead and use it. Don't worry about it right now. Okay, so later on, when you figure out, there will come a time when maybe you will trip on that, and at that point worry about it. Right now, just keep things simple. Okay. Okay, what would be the last 2 weeks? So the last 2 weeks would be slightly bigger problems. So I think the problems that we have been talking about required you to write programs which are maybe 20, 30 lines. Okay. So even that we have been encouraging you to break down into pieces. So as you might see right now, many of our assignments are that we give you a main program and we ask you to write a function. So that is typically the style that you will write a large program. But when you write large programs, you have to really think about how you organize your code. Whereas if you're writing a short program, you can almost start writing and things will work out. Or if they don't work out, you can look at the code that you write is usually going to be so small that it is visible to you in a glance. And therefore, you may be tempted to just write it that way, and that's okay. So, whereas when you are writing a large program, you will have to break it up into pieces. You will have to say, okay, how do I do this piece? How do I do this piece? Okay, so that's what is going to happen in the last 2 weeks. So you are going to write. Okay, so you are going to write a bunch of programs. One program is going to be a graphical editor. Okay, so this sounds really complicated, but it is not. It is something that can be written in about 100 or maybe 150 lines of code. And the graphics is already there, and we have already built most of the things that we need for this. So that is one, that graphical editor is something that we will do. We will also do a program to simulate the gravitation, the movement of planets and stars. Okay, so again, you will have to, okay, so again, in the style of programming, you will have to say that, look, let me make a class for representing planets. Okay, so that is again another way in which you design programs. So if you have some entities in your problem, you make classes for them. So these are some of the ideas that are meant to be conveyed in these last 2 weeks. Sir, please make a course on DSA with CPP in the next semester. Okay, I will try to do that. I have received that request many times, and maybe one of these days I will just do it. Okay, I do want to do it because I think it would be a fun thing to do. Priyanshu, I can't help you on your PC. How to run simple CPP on my PC? Please put it on the forum, and maybe the TAs will be able to help. Asmith, you have a query again about recursion. Recursion, of course, has to be thought of as a function which calls itself. Okay, but it is more clearly, and I guess that's all I can say for this question right now. Okay, what level of knowledge would one require in C++ to build a 3D game? Okay, so first of all, simple CPP is a 2D library. So you cannot use 2D library. Well, I mean, unless you always convert everything into a 2D, into 2D. That's not going to be advisable. So you would need a 3D library. You would need primitives which will allow you to show your 3D objects. Okay. So there are courses, there are graphics courses, there are other libraries. You can do that. Okay, if you really want to build a 3D game. Oh, there is a beautiful system called Alice. Okay, so I don't know how clearly it works right now, but if it does, then that should enable you to build a nice 3D game. But my suggestion to you would be to please make sure that you have exhausted the possibilities of 2D, okay, in terms of doing complex games, in terms of doing complex applications. Okay. Will the forum be available after this course? No, the forum will shut down after the course ends. From where can I get solution to exercises which you give at the end of most lectures? You can ask for the solutions on the forum. Okay, I don't want to give the solutions out because I really want to make sure that you try hard. And when you ask for the solutions, please tell us what you thought of. I'm instructing my TAs not to just give out answers, but ask students what have they thought of, and maybe give some hints so that you really learn how to figure out the question, figure out the answer, and not just know the answer. Okay. What happened? Uh, Tannu Sharma, you are asking for a sample paper of NPTEL exam. A very simple sample paper is just all the quizzes. Just take all the quizzes together and that would be a sample paper. Okay, it's nothing really different. So don't get too worried about it. How do we know that our registration, do you mean, was complete? Again, support at nptel.acm. Okay. Okay. Cheer everyone from CU. Okay. Okay. I think I have come to the end of this chat. So let me now go to the questions that were received earlier. Okay. So yeah. So let's see. So yeah, I want to ask, please give me, how do I manage? Okay, so the first question is, I want to ask a question that please give me a suggestion about how I manage my college work and discourse. So first of all, when you say college work and discourse, I understand that you are not talking about, that this course is not something that your college is asking you to do, right? So this is a course that you are doing independently. So I suspect that nobody is going to give you any specific credit for it. So I will say that please do pay more attention to your college courses, because you cannot afford to do badly. This should be this course will be available for you on the net even after these 12 weeks are over. So you can do it later on if you like, but you can't delay working for your college course. Okay. Having said that, if you can make time, if you can sort of allocate time regularly for doing something, that's the only way things are going to work. So you have to try the best over here. Okay. Okay, when do we start learning object-oriented programming in C++ in our course? Okay, so we will be learning a little bit of it in these 2 weeks. Okay, so you will see that already. Where data abstraction is used in C++ programming. Okay. All right, so I think there are a couple of questions about abstraction. So let me try to answer those together. Okay. So what is abstraction? So an abstract concept is, so the term abstraction actually is used in many ways. So let me just directly go into what is abstraction. What do people mean when they talk about abstraction? So in programming or in computer science or in many other fields, the term abstraction is used to mean pick out the important and the relevant aspects and ignore everything else. Okay, so or hide the irrelevant aspects. Okay, or figure out what are the relevant, what are the important aspects. So abstraction, when people talk about function abstraction, what is meant is that I'm going to tell you what you need to know about the function that I have written. So what do you need to know about, if I write a matrix multiplication function, what do you need to know? You need to know how to supply the matrices, how to give the arguments, and you need to know how the product or whatever operation I'm doing is returned back to you. Exactly how do I do the multiplication is something that is not necessary for you to understand. Okay, so that is what is typically called function abstraction. Why is this important? It is important just to keep ourselves sane. If you knew everything, and if you wanted to keep everything in your mind as you are using something, you would really go mad. So for example, when you go to a tailor and ask that tailor to stitch a shirt, you don't tell the tailor, look, please tell me how you stitch a shirt. In fact, you are going to the tailor just so that you don't have to do it yourself. Okay, not just do it, but not even think about it. Okay, so that is abstraction. So similarly, when you are writing when somebody is writing a function for you, you are only in there is a distinction between what the function does and how it does. So keep those two things apart. That's one point that I want to mention about function abstraction, and this is going to be extremely important when you start thinking about large programs. Then there is data abstraction as well. Data abstraction is I create a struct or a class for you, and the struct or a class has this notion of private and public variables. So private variables are those which you as a user are not allowed to see. Okay, so again the idea over there is similar to the previous thing. So you don't really need to know what data I am going to be using, how I am going to be representing the data inside my object. Okay, you don't need to know, because why should you care? You should be asking about functionality, and I should be making a promise to you regarding the final result. And if you make a member function call, I will execute that member function call and deliver some answer to you. Or maybe I'll make a change internally in the object. So that is what you should be interested in. That change, exactly which variables I change, you don't need to know. But if you say that, look, I inserted something into it and somehow that got recorded as being inserted, that is enough. Okay. Now this is often called data abstraction, and that is something that we have been doing all along. So abstraction is something that we have been doing. It is useful because just to keep ourselves sane, and it is useful for delimiting what is your responsibility, what is my responsibility. All right? And sometimes, so again, it is delimiting what is the responsibility of which part of the code. You might have written both pieces, both parts of the code, but this is something which keeps things separate. Okay. Sir, sometimes data type declare in header file. How can we know it? Okay, so some header files you can actually read, or you can read documents about it. Okay. Is C++ a low level language or a high level language? I answered that it is both. Okay. Okay, I have two questions. Please give us 5 tips that I should keep in mind while learning programming. Okay, first tip, practice a lot. Second tip, and this is also extremely important for this course and for many things. When you are trying to write a program, don't first jump into it and start writing it. Instead, first become very clear about how you would solve that problem manually. Suppose you are given a pencil and paper and you are supposed to solve that problem manually. Okay? Then how would you do it? If you become very clear about it, and only after you become very clear about it, start writing your program. And write your program so that it mimics what manual computation you do. Remember that if you cannot solve the problem manually, you should not even be trying to write the program. Okay, when I say this, if there are some libraries that you already have, so say you don't know how to do matrix multiplication, but there is a library to do matrix multiplication, that is different. Okay, in which case you can assume that when you are solving the problem manually, maybe your friend knows how to do matrix multiplication and you can rely on your friend to do the matrix multiplication. So you can assume you have some such experts that you can consult. Okay, but so those experts are the libraries that you might have in your programming language. But after consulting those experts, can you manually solve the problem? Okay, can you examine what exactly do you do? Do you use a loop? Do you use a loop within a loop? Is there a condition that you have to check? What kinds of variables do you need to use? Okay, so this is another skill I think which you need to develop. When you are solving a problem on paper, You need to remember things. You may write them down on paper, but everything that you write down on paper is not something that you need to remember. So you have to be very clear about what things you need to remember, and those are the things that will go into your variables. Okay. So tip 1, lots of practice. Tip 2, think about how you solve the problem manually. Tip 3, try to break things into pieces. Okay. So I think that's all I can think of right now. Let me move on to the next question. After this course, we need to do an advanced course. You will be able to do many projects simply by practicing. In fact, if you go to the Simple CPP web page, there is a whole library, and if you go to my home page and if you look for internships, I'm saying there somewhere that I don't offer internships, but here are some practice problems for you. So all those practice problems you will be able to do by after you finish this course. So try those. But of course, as I said earlier, there are many other courses you can take. There could be numerical analysis courses, there could be algorithms courses, there could be data structures courses, and of course courses like computer networks, databases, graphics. Okay. I mean, there is so much to learn. Okay. How can we use string functions easily in C++? What does that mean? I think string functions are quite easy, right? So if I want to concatenate strings, I use plus. If I want to find something in a string, I can use find. I can take substrings. You will have to give me a bit more than this if I have to answer it. What is an array and pointer? Okay, so I think you are referring to the question that we discussed about does the array name itself have a value? Okay, so if I declare int a10, what happens if I write print a? Normally we expect a to be written as the array to be accessed element by element. What if we use the name of the array alone? So we have said that if we use the name of the array alone, then it means it refers to, or it is that name is equal to the address of the 0th element of that array. The starting point in memory where the array for that the memory is allocated for that array. Okay, and so it is an address. Okay, when we talk about pointers, you usually mean a variable inside which an address is stored. So a is not a pointer. A is an address. The name of the variable is an address. When we talk about a pointer, it's a variable inside which you can store an address and you can change the value of the variable. But if I have a array name which is a, I cannot change the value of a, because a will always mean where in memory the array is stored, the first position from where the array is stored. And this is decided by the compiler. You cannot change it. It's a constant. All right? Okay, I have made very detailed notes from your lectures and I have done all quizzes, coding assignments. What else can I do to score better in the final exam of NPTEL? And which level of questions can we expect in final exam? So if you have done everything, you are all set. Okay? And the exam is going to be pretty much like the quiz portion. And okay, I should say the following also. I might also look at the programming assignments that were given, and maybe I might ask you a question related to that programming assignment. But I will not expect you to remember. I will reproduce enough of the ideas and enough of the questions. So it will be in the end it will be a fill in the blank question or a multiple choice question, and I don't expect you to remember anything. I don't expect you to memorize anything from the programming assignments, but since you have done those assignments, it might be useful for it might be easier for you to solve some questions from there. Okay. All right. Oh, I'm very glad to read that you are liking the course. Okay. Okay, the last questions don't seem to be, okay. All right, have they been, I think we have gone over our time, but let me try to answer any questions which have come up here. Okay. Can we do programming in modern C++ after completing this course? Okay. So the C++ that we are using in this course is C++ 11. Okay. So there are more modern variation, more recent changes, but the changes are fairly advanced. So what you are using is pretty modern. But yes, keep track of what is going on. Don't be too crazy about it. My suspicion is that there is a lot more for you to learn about programming itself. So go after, rather than going after a language, go after programming problems. So think about cool topics. Okay, think about the programs you want to write and go ahead and write them. And as you write them, if you need features which you think are there in the more modern variations, so whatever 17, 20 or whatever, then you can study them. But you already know a lot, so you don't need to, I mean, you already know C++ 11, 17, 14. Okay, I think most features from 11 you know, okay, or I think maybe even some from 14. Okay, I'm glad to hear that Nayan is enjoying the course. When is this? It will probably come back again next January. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Bharati has already told you. Question 9 of quiz 8. Okay. What regarding question 9? Okay. I have tried answering it. I'm getting an answer which is not in the options. Okay, Bharadwaj, you can put this on the forum. And you will get an answer if you explain what your thinking is. The TAs will give you a hint. Okay, so please do that. Please give us a path for internship through this certificate. Okay, I need to think about it. I don't have a good answer to this. Okay, I'm glad. Okay, thank you for this course. Oh, I'm very happy to teach it for you. You didn't upload the projects like solar system and airport stand. Okay, so if you download the code blocks IDE, then those projects are already there on it. Okay, so just download that IDE and you will get those projects. Okay. All right, I think I'm at the end. How to do airport project? That has been explained in the book quite a bit, right? And you also have the code. So at this point, you should be able to look through the code and through the explanation. If there is a specific question about it, put it down in the forum, and we will try to explain it. Okay. So I think that's about it. I think we have overshot our time, but that is fine. But I think we have gotten to the end of the questions. So I think I should probably stop. And besides, they want to close this office as well. Okay. So I think we will stop. Okay. All right. Thank you. And yeah, so I keep working, and I hope you are enjoying the course.